Hello class, this is Professor King. I just want to spend a few minutes with you going over the Chapter 9 files that we had for lecture class last week. These Chapter 9 files should help you significantly on your grader project. I'm going to walk through them fairly quickly, but wanted to show you some of this multi-worksheet management and 3D referencing so that you would have something to go off of. I know we didn't get to this very much in lab. We worked on some VLOOKUPs and some HLOOKUPs with multiple sheet tabs, and we'll do more going forward in the course. I wanted you to get used to managing workbooks with all these tabs, but for now, we're going to take it a little bit slow and walk through these together. I also have put up on Canvas with these Chapter 9 inside this zip folder. I will put up the instructions from your textbook that relate to these files. This is a capstone exercise, so it looks a lot like your grader project. And Pearson gives you, as you know, step-by-step instructions to be able to complete it. However, I do want you to take into account that on the exam, you won't be given step-by-step instructions, so it's important to know what's going on and be able to work through what's happening. So for this workbook, what's happening is that you're given this information, and this company is trying to track expenses for each division within their company. We're going to have 4 different workbooks that we'll work through in this exercise, and we're going to create some data validation along the way to make sure people are putting in the right expenses and not exceeding their expense limits and things like that. So we'll get started. The problem says we're concerned with the faculty that are requesting professional memberships that cost more than their allocated budget. For some of these faculty in this workbook, their allocated budget for professional membership is less than what they're trying to expense. So the instructions ask us to create a validation rule in cell B3 to prevent faculty members or anyone else working with this worksheet to be able to put in anything greater than $350. So in cell B3 of this professional development expenses, we're going to create some data validation to make sure that people are only able to put in the expenses that we want them to put in. To put in data validation, again, remember guys, when I'm recording, I'm working on my Mac computer, so your PCs are going to look a little different, but you should be able to follow along, and let me or the GTAs know if you get lost. It's just easier to record on my Mac machine. So here we go. Data validation, cell B3, we're going to go up to the data tab over here in this middle portion of the ribbon. We're going to select data validation. Data validation is our way of asking people to put in a certain value. We can prevent them from being able to put in certain values, or we can just make suggestions. So we talked about in class, if I want people to enter a number because I'm trying to get a sum and they start typing A or a question mark, that doesn't really help me. I want numbers. In this case, we want only whole numbers to be able to be entered, and we want whole numbers that are less than or equal to 350. Again, this exercise is walking us through step by step. It's likely that I would tell you that you want teachers to get a warning if they try to enter expenses over their cap is 350. If I were to ask you that question, this is the kind of data validation rule that you would put in place. The instructions also ask us to enter an input message. Our input message titled Professional Membership, and an input message that says enter the amount of annual professional membership dues. So that's, all well and good. When I do this data validation rule, these are the input messages that are going to come up. It wants me to give an error alert, and again, I can stop, I can warn, or I can just give information. In this case, I'm going to put a warning, and I'm going to say too expensive, and I'm going to say the amount you tried to enter exceeds $350. Please select a less expensive membership. This means that the business isn't going to refund any money over $350, so we'd like for people to know that when they are filling out their expense report. So you can see it comes up, enter the amount of the annual percentage dues, and if I try to enter something higher than what I'm working on, it will give me that warning message. The next set of instructions relate to filling data as we go through. Filling worksheets to be consistent. You'll look, as we look through these worksheets, the Bonnet, Hoffman, Myong, Stathampoulos, however you say that, all of those worksheets, you're going to see that while these have titles, these look like they probably need titles. I'm sure that we'll get to that as we go through. But right now, we need to just force this data validation to go through the other worksheets. So to do that, we're going to be clicked in cell B3. We're going to go over to this Fill button over here on the right-hand side of the ribbon on the Home tab and click Fill. And we're going to say Fill across worksheets. And we're not going to be able to do anything because Professor King has lost her mind and she needs to group these worksheets together. So to group the worksheets together, what I did is I clicked on the Bonnet tab. Let me ungroup these for just a second. I clicked on the Bonnet tab here at the bottom. I hold down the Shift key and click all the way over to the Stathampoulos worksheet. And I want to fill this across those worksheets. So in order to do that, I'm again going to go up here to the ribbon and go to Fill Across Worksheets. And I want to fill them with all of this, not the contents. I don't want it to say 400, not the formatting. I want all of it, including the data validation. So I'll do that and I'll click OK. Then I'm going to go to ungroup these worksheets. To ungroup these worksheets, I can do it one of two ways. I can click on a worksheet that wasn't inside the group, or I can right-click down here and say Ungroup Sheets. Either one is fine. But now I'm going to go over to the Hoffman worksheet, and we get this data validation rule. I'm going to enter 200. Over here on this next worksheet, the Myong worksheet, I'm going to enter 350, which is not going to give me that reminder. But on this worksheet, I'm actually going to re-enter the number 400. And you'll notice I get this warning box. Please select a less expensive membership. We're going to, if we click yes, it's going to do something different. But we want to click no because we want to actually have a membership that goes within that state. So I'll do 400 again. And I'll click yes and show you. If I click yes, it just is just a warning. It'll let me enter that. But I don't want to enter that 400 again. So when the error message pops up, I'll say no. I don't want to continue with that. And it'll let me fix my error. So now, just to point out, I want to show you that you can see if you have data in your worksheet that doesn't meet your data validation rules. Again, you can do that by going to the data validation tab, or the data tab, and finding data validation and say circle invalid data. And that's going to circle that right there on the Bonnet worksheet. We're going to make sure that we save as we go through these files. Mine's on autosave, but if yours isn't, make sure you see what's happening here. So the next part of our workbook says the Bonnet worksheet contains formatted labels in column A, and in range B1 to C1, you want to copy the formatted data to the other faculty worksheets. Well, that means that all of this fancy headings and all this stuff we want to be copied to the other worksheets. So to do that, we'll simply group the worksheets together. Again, clicking on Bonnet, holding on the Shift key, and clicking on the last faculty worksheet to do that. We're going to select the range A1 to A6. I'm going to go back to the Home tab, and we're going to say Fill Across Worksheets. And we're going to use all again. So when we fill across the worksheets, you can click through and realize that all of these now have those titles in it, but you'll notice that the column A wasn't formatted to the right width. So to get it to format across all of the worksheets, we'll right-click on column A, select column width, and change it to be just a little wider, change it to 26. When we do that, they'll all be changed. Remember, if you have grouped worksheets, you can change this stuff all day long, but it's going to overwrite anything that you already had in the worksheet, so please be careful about that. Next, we're going to enter a sum function here because we want to add up all of these expenses. So we'll add a sum function here to calculate B3 to B5 and press enter to total these expenses. And you'll notice we get 37.35 here. And that total will also be on these other faculty worksheets as well, again, because we have them grouped together. Next, we're going to change some formatting. So we want the top and the bottom. This is just a business preference. We want the top cell in our list of numbers and the bottom cell, normally the total, to be in accounting format. So we're going to select B3 and B6. Hold down the Command key or the Control key to select both of them at one time. We're going to select them, and then we're going to give them an accounting format. Accounting format is just the $ here, and we want them to show they're all whole numbers. No reason to show them with decimals, so we'll show them with 0 decimals. Numbers in the middle, we often want to see with a comma so that we can realize that they are, in fact, thousands without having to think through that. So this comma style format is really great. The difference here is it doesn't put the $, and when you're doing lists like this with totals for businesses, oftentimes we only put $signs on the top and the bottom to remind us that the whole column is currency without being distracting. So again, we'll remove the decimal places here, and then we want to format this bottom cell. We can put a single underline to tell us that there's a total going to be indicated, and select a double bottom border underline for the total. So it looks like this when you're finished. Now, as we go through and make more changes, I want to make sure that I ungroup these worksheets because I have more things that I need to do. Now we're going to move on to the 3D references part of this lab. We're going to say you want to enter formulas to reference other worksheets. That way the values from the individual faculty change. Those changes are reflected in the IM division worksheet. So over here, this last tab in this workbook is the totals of the other pages. So one thing that's nice is to have all of your information grouped together and just have a totals worksheet. In some instances, you'll in fact hide these faculty worksheets and only show the totals and not know where they came from without unhiding the sheets. But in this case, we're just going to summarize our data back here on the IM division worksheet. So let's do some 3D formulas. 3D formulas meaning they have 3 dimensions. They have rows, columns, and sheets. So they're on a different sheet, referencing something on a different sheet. So for example, the professional memberships for Bonnet come from the Bonnet worksheet. So here we're just going to press equals, click back on the Bonnet worksheet, and find the professional membership dues from the Bonnet worksheet and just hit enter. Again, for Hoffman, we're going to hit equals and we're going to go to the Hoffman worksheet. We're going to find the professional membership number. And again, we're going to hit enter. Before I hit enter this time, I want to show you, up at the top, you'll recognize this from lab. It shows you the name of the sheet, Hoffman, with the exclamation point. Guess that's the syntax to tell me that that formula is referencing something on a different tab from where I type the equal sign. That's how you know that's the syntax that's related there. We'll do the same thing for these last 2 rows, referencing the correct sheets. Just equal sign, simply clicking on the sheet that we want. Well, that one didn't work because I'm in the wrong sheet. Let's try that one more time. Equals. Go to the other sheet, professional development. Because I know all of my workbooks are lined up this way, and they have professional membership, reference books, training, travel expenses, and totals, I can simply highlight that whole row, grab my fill handle, or this green box right here, and drag all the way down to get these totals. Then I know that those are correct because I can flip back and forth to look at the sheet. So Bonnet, for example, the total expenses at the bottom are $37.35, which is in fact what we wanted to do. Now we're going to create these category totals. Now, you could just sum these numbers right here for these category totals, but we're trying to learn about 3D formulas, so I'm going to show you how you get them from the 3D formula way of grouping worksheets. So here, if we want to add all of these numbers together, but let's say we didn't have all these numbers right here on the sheet, we would just simply do equals sum. We use sum when we want to just get a sum total. I'll click on the Bonnet worksheet at the bottom, hold down the Shift key, click on the last faculty worksheet. Then you'll notice up here in my formula bar, I get sum, and then I get Bonnet, colon, Stathopoulos, right? And I have quotation marks around the end, an exclamation point. This tells me the range of sheets. You'll remember if we're doing a sum for A1 to A3, it's A1 colon A3. Here it is just a range of sheets, and we know it's sheet names by the exclamation point in the number. But now you'll notice I'm not highlighted on all 4 of these tabs. I'm only on the Bonnet tab. So it says, you want me to sum all 4 of these worksheets. Which cell do you want me to sum? Well, here I want professional memberships. to be summed for all 4 of those worksheets. This only works because these professional membership dues are in the same cell on each sheet, but for this, it's very helpful, and we get 1,300. You'll notice if we go straight across, our sum is in fact 1,300, so that's an easy way to check, and we can simply copy that formula down. Works with 3D references as well as regular 2D references. We're going to change formatting again. We'll make sure that we have the top row and the bottom row in accounting format. Again, to highlight multiple rows, you're just going to hold down Command or Control as you click through it. As you'll find that highlighting things is much easier with a mouse. It is my solid recommendation that you get one. We're going to back it out to no decimal places, again, because we have all whole numbers here. And we'll do the middle portion as comma style with no decimal places. It's starting to look like we want it to look, but we'll again select a top and double bottom border. There's the other way to get that in 1 step instead of 2 to make that look the same. Now, when you're doing that work for Pearson, you're probably going to want to do the bottom underline here and the double underline here, but again, Professor King and Pearson don't grade the same way, so try not to get frustrated. Our next one says we have a documentation sheet at the front of this workbook. So we want this documentation sheet to work like a title page. We want it to be able to reference the other worksheets just by clicking on them here in this table of contents or documentation page. So we're going to link this bonnet worksheet, actually link it to the bonnet worksheet, Hoffman, so on and so forth. So in cell B7, we're going to create a link, and to create that link, we're going to go to, oh, this is where I missed my PC. How about insert? Surely it's insert. So insert a link. A link can be any kind of hyperlink. We can go out to the web, we can go to another workbook, we can connect to Outlook, we can do all kinds of things. Here we're going to connect to something in this document, and we want to connect to cell B6. I know that because it's written out from Pearson. I'll show you how we figured that out here in a second. But I want to connect to cell B6 on the bonnet worksheet because I'm going to create a hyperlink out of this bonnet text to display bonnet. Good to go. Click OK. When I click this hyperlink, it takes me to the totals. So if I hadn't had it written out by Pearson, I would want to go to the bonnet tab and make sure whichever cell becomes active when I click this hyperlink is the one that makes the most sense. Often it's the totals row. We'll do the same thing here for Hoffman, Stephanopoulos, and so on and so forth. It's going to continue to be cell B6, and we're just going to make sure that it ends up on the correct tab. I'm going to do this quickly. If you need help figuring out how to do it, please just pause and rewind because that will help you. But again, cell B6 and all of these tabs, so on and so forth. So lastly, we have the totals row. So in cell B11, it says let's go to F7 of the IM division worksheet. Again, that's where the total ending total is. So that's where we would want to reference. So this link is going to go to F7 instead of B6 in the IM division workbook. So now you'll notice when I click on these links, it does in fact take me where I want to go. It's also nice if you create a link somewhere on your workbook to take you back to the documentation tab, should you want that, but that's how you would go about that. Let's see. Next, we're going to do this auditor workbook. This is a very important step when you have different workbooks that you're working in and maybe you didn't create them all. So for this one, we're going to open a different file. So we're going to go up here and we're going to open. This time we want the 1S file. So this 1S file has some errors in it, and we're going to figure out what these errors are. So here we're going to, again, I'm lost on my Mac, bear with me a second. Formulas, okay. So here we're going to show the dependents for cell B4 on this thing. We know that B4 should come from somewhere, but we're gonna, or it should feed into somewhere. So you see that B4 should in fact be part of this total. It should be part of this total. We're just gonna check and make sure that it is. So we're gonna hit this trace dependence button, excuse me, and it's gonna tell us that B4 does in fact feed into this total and to this total, which is good. It's what we want to do. But let's find the errors that are in this workbook. So let's click on this error, this big caution sign, error checking, and say, tell me where these errors are. I've already done this, so they're not going to be in here. Hold on. We'll open one that hasn't been done yet. Bear with me 1 second. You can tell I practiced this before I talk to you, so hang on 1 second. I'll find one. Let's try this one. Oh, of course. Okay, sorry. Please hold. That says Excel can't open 2 workbooks with the same name at the same time, because I tried to open the same name workbook and it says no. Sorry about that. Not going to happen today. Let's see. Okay, so now you can see in here, same worksheet, except I have this hashtag name. I should have known that I couldn't get there. But you see the error messages that pop up. Anytime you have a hashtag, you're going to be able to check your errors. We're going to do error checking and see what this first one is. This first error, it says name. It says the error in cell F4 is equals sum with 2 M's, B4 to E4. Invalid name error. The formula contains unrecognized text. So what do you want to do about it? I want to edit it in the formula bar. I simply take that extra M out, which will fix it. Now it says there's one or more circular references where a formula refers to itself either directly or indirectly. It might cause things to calculate incorrectly. So what is a circular reference? Well, circular reference is here. Circular reference in F7. How do I fix a circular reference? Fix a circular reference. Next. You fix a circular reference in a couple ways. Easiest way that I know is to double click on the cell and say, okay, there's circular reference here because I'm trying to sum myself, because that is in fact cell F7. Go up here and we'll fix it to F6, and that will take care of the errors in this file as well. So now we can close this and go back to this other page. Let me go back because I actually have to open it. And we're going to link some workbooks together. So now I'm going to ask you to go back and I'm going to ask you to open up those files. Let me go back to where we are in our workbook so that I don't give you accidentally the wrong files. Here we go. So here we go. So we need to open file 1S, which is the one we just had open. We also need to open the last two, IT and open professional development. So when these open, you're going to notice that a couple things happens. They overlap, which is fine, except it would be much more helpful if we could arrange them all in tiled so that we can see the windows of every active workbook. But Apple doesn't really like to do this, so you have to kind of play with it. So on the Apple, intuitively, you want it to arrange the windows of the active workbook. That's not what you want here. You actually want all of them, not just the active one on your Mac. Now, on your Windows side, some of you will have to check that box, Windows of active workbooks, but just play around with yours until you get it. The idea is to get all 4 sheets here on this page right here, because what we're going to do up here in this development expenses is we're going to reference different pieces of these other workbooks. We're going to create a professional development expenses workbook that references these other 3. So here's what's going to happen. Not only can I 3D reference to another sheet in the same workbook, I can link to external workbooks as well. So in cell B4 here, what I want to do is I want to do equals, and then I want to find the information management, the IM division total for professional membership. It's way down here in this other workbook. I'm going to click on that cell. Now, notice I have brackets now that give me the name of the file. Yours is going to be different because it's going to have your last name on it. It gives me the name of the tab with this exclamation point. The brackets tell me the workbook. The exclamation point tells me the sheet. And the cells tell me F4. I don't want to lock in F4. I don't want F4. Apparently, I don't know which button to use on my own machine. How about Command T? There we go. So, all my Apple friends, if you can't get function F4 or F4 to work, Command T will take those dollar signs out for you as well. I don't want it to be absolute reference. I'm going to drag it down here in a second. So I just want to make sure that that happens. 1300 shows up, 1300 shows up, I'm in business. Same thing with Information Systems Division. I can click right here, Information Systems Division. I know that by the tab that's listed here. If your screen was bigger than mine, you'd have the sheet name up, or the workbook name up here as well. I don't have that because of my resolution, but I can be on my way. Again, I don't want this to be absolute reference because I'm going to, in fact, drag it down. All right, so information technology, same thing. I want this workbook. I don't want absolute references. Good to go. So my categories, let's see. I can copy this one down. I can copy this one down. I can copy this one down. One more. I'm going to take these cells, and I'm going to go to the Home tab, and I'm going to copy. Nope, I don't want to copy. I want to format paint. So what I did here, guys, is I highlighted these. I will go over and I do format painter because I don't want those underlines on those cells, so I just format paint here. Then what we're going to do lastly is we're going to create a function in E4 that sums them up. So sum all of these up. Good to go. And we'll copy that down as well. Now, the last thing that it says on the Capstone project is to set up a watch window for cell. For this workbook, set up a watch window for it. I can't do it on my Mac. I don't have the capacity to set up a watch window, so I'm not going to show you how to do it. But on your PC, you should be able to set up a watch window. It's on the View tab. Should be able to get it there. So if you want those points for your homework, you may have to use a PC. You can't get there on the Mac. Lastly, what we want to do is create footers and all of these extra directions. I'm going to show you how to create one footer on one workbook, and then you can figure out how to zip your files. I know you can do that. I have faith in you. So we're going to expand this one workbook right here. I'm going to show you how to input the footers in case you've forgotten. So here, the way that I like to get to them is I go to print, and then it's going to bring up my page setup. Except it's not going to bring up my page setup here. Hold on. We'll stop. In my Windows and my PC people, that's how I get there. On my Mac, here we go. How about insert, header, and footer? So we're going to insert headers and footers. And in this case, I want a custom footer. Go to footer. A custom footer here. And I want to input with my name on the left side. So Professor King on the left side. Professor King on the left side, the sheet name code, that's just with these buttons. Guys, if you're on a PC, the buttons appear in the custom header format button, so you should be good to go there. And then on the right-hand side, it says file name code, sheet name, file name code, and that just gives me the coding reference to be able to get that in there. So again, to do that, you just click on file name and then click off of file name, and it will put the file name in that footer box. Hopefully this video was helpful. Please continue to watch the others as you study for your exam. Thanks.